there, friends and sane persons, and welcome to another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. My name is Kyle, and Wednesday Whimsy is a short show that I do every Wednesday evening where I talk about a board game topic, a top 10 list, or something else, whatever happens to be on my mind. Well, I have been playing a lot of games lately that have involved use of apps. In particular, one that I'll talk about next week, but it's just sort of been kind of brought back to my mind as I'm starting to think, it's kind of really gotten to a point where you're seeing a lot more games that do it. And sorry, I'm making a note. You see a lot more games that are doing it. And so I just decided today I was going to talk about board game app-itizers, and that is sort of ways that board games use apps and kind of my top few games that involve one. Not really a strong format here today. I'm just going to talk about what I, ramble a little bit, talk about whatever I happen to feel. And so let's start, first of all, by talking about kind of the history of board game apps. I think the first game that ever came out that used one was a game called XCOM. It might have been Alchemist, but I think XCOM is the first one I remember, ever saying, hey, we're going to integrate, I'm trying to show a picture here, we're going to integrate an app into a board game. Now, XCOM itself is an interesting game. I didn't love it personally, but it was kind of novel because it was going to come out with this app that really runs the game for you. And it was so integral to the game that the game didn't really have very many rules. It was just kind of, hey, get started and let's go. And then the rest all kind of happened on the app. And now it's based on an IP, and some people really liked it. I thought it was just okay. I haven't really even thought about it since it came out, but it really was the first game that I remember that kind of broke this barrier into apps. So when you're talking about board game app-itizers, we're going to talk about a couple of different ways that board games can use them. The main way, which is the way we're going to talk about last, is sort of where it's an integrated part of the experience. But there's another two kind of ways where you'll see it. The first one of them is where there's just kind of a sidecar app. Like it's something that might make the game feel a little bit better for you. Why? Okay, yeah. So, for example, I've been playing a game a lot called Stone Saga. Let me show pictures of it. And they came out with Stone Saga. To spell it, not Stone Sage. I'm on my game today. Well, I can't seem to find it. You'll just have to trust me. They came out with this app for it here we go. That doesn't really, it's not required to play the game. The game is a game where you're exploring and you're having adventures, and I might talk about it, in more detail on another future episode of Wednesday Whimsy. But you're exploring this world, you're crafting, and pretty much everything has you go to a codex. And in the codex, you're going to find really everything you want to find, right? If you put these two things together, what do they get you? Well, go to the codex and find out. Or, you meet a monster, flip to page 54 to see what happens. And it's really just a book. And you've got this spiral-bound codex over here as well, and you spend a lot of time in it. Well, they came out with an app for it where you can just sort of jump to the entries. And that is a very convenient, happy way to do it. It's a nice way to sort of use the app. It's not part of the game, and I played it several times without the app, but once I got the app, I was like, great, this is wonderful. Another example, a game that I talked about that I really loved last year, was the game Tend. And Tend I really love, but Tend has an app that you can use. You can use it to set up your cards, which, okay, that's easy enough to do on your own. But where it really improves the experience is there's these scratch cards, and you can get on the app version, which is a web app, you can just go there and download and have your own scratch card, and you just touch it, and it scratches for you. It keeps you from making mistakes, and it's not messy. So I really like that. It's a great way to kind of keep the game replayable if you happen to go through all 100 scratch cards that come in the game, which you never will, but in case you did, there's an electronic way to get them, and I think that's fantastic. So it's a great improvement. There's also a game called Merchants of Andromeda. And I've actually not played Merchants of Andromeda. At least I don't think so. I don't remember playing it. Yeah, I don't haven't even rated it. But in Merchants of Andromeda, it's got this Dutch auction system, and it uses an app. You can use any timer to sort of make it work, but you'll use this app to kind of lock in your bid, and it'll tell you, you know, when it'll help you sort of figure out who got there and how much they have to pay. Again, you could use any timer, so it's not integral to the experience, but it's a nice way to sort of add some functionality to a game that, you know, didn't need it, but it's a nice addition. There's also another, it's not really a board game app, but it's kind of a sidecar app, and it's called Foreteller. Foreteller is it's an app, I guess, that you can get, and for games that have a lot of narrative, you can sort of have voice acting on it. So you can just open it up and click there, and then it'll read it for you. Now, I don't love that one, actually, because it's sometimes a little wonky to navigate the different menus, and I find sometimes it's just much faster for me to open it and read it. But I like that it's there, and sometimes I'll use it, right? Especially if it's a long piece of text. I can listen to it while I'm setting up the next scenario or something. It's good. There's also the game Oathsworn has this codex that you're going through, this sort of choose your own adventure story, and there's a physical book for it, but there's a great app version that you can have that will narrate it all for you and help you make your choices and sort of walk you through things, and I think it's great. So that's not app-driven games. Those are apps that enhance your experience, enhance an experience that's available to you otherwise. So the second category is what I would call integrated apps. And with those, I'm going to talk about some of my favorites here. And I don't have them in any particular order, but these are games that you really have to use this app if you want to play. You cannot play the game without it. The first one that comes to mind when I think of this is the game Chronicles of Crime. Chronicles of Crime. Now, Lucky Duck has kind of made a name for themselves of using app-driven board games. But Chronicles of Crime, which I like, it's I rated a 7 out of 10. But what you're doing here is you are every time you want to do something, you are going to scan this card into your app, and it might let you talk to this guy. And then if you come back later, it'll remember that you've done a few things in the meantime, and he might be more hostile to you or more friendly. And then there's this really cool part where when you investigate a crime scene, you're going to hold up your phone with these weird glasses on, and it'll be like you're in there. And as you turn around, it'll move around in there. And so it adds to the immersion. And I think it's fantastic. It's a great way of integrating the app into the experience. Now, you cannot play without it. The game does not work without that. But that app tracks your progress, it tracks your sort of working toward the goal, it helps you find your way to the solution, and I think it works really well. I was showing a picture, but apparently I forgot. Let me share my screen here. I thought I had that open. I have here a picture of these glasses that I was talking about. Yeah, so that's kind of how Chronicles of Crime works. It's a great integration of the app. Another one, and kind of one of the first games that did this really, really well, was Mansions of Madness. And if ever you're wondering how a game works with an app, this Mansions of Madness is the way to do it. Because the original game, I remember I loved, but it was such a nightmare to set up. And it was so fragile because if you made even the smallest mistake, it could really ruin the experience for other players. And also, one person was kind of running the board and wasn't really doing anything in the game. So this app version of it, it really made the game into a cooperative experience and heightened it. It had these puzzles, and you could do them in the app, and it had, the story you were going through, and it would let things surprise you, right? When the monsters came out, you wouldn't see them sitting there because they're sitting on the board. It would be some sort of a surprise, and I found that just to be an amazing way to do it, to the point that nobody even plays the first edition anymore. Another great game that did it well was Forgotten Waters. Now, Forgotten Waters came out in 2020. It was the first game of the new Plaid Hat after its independence. And this game it's the first in a series of currently 3 games that use this app to kind of tell the story. And you really have to use it. It's going to walk you through, it'll give you the quests, it'll give you the resolution. And because it all happens behind, black box of an app, it allows you to be surprised, right? It allows the game to kind of take you in different paths. And I've played it a bunch of times, but you never find the same stuff because there's so many entries. Now, I think it's possible to buy a book of all the entries. I don't know. But I didn't. Because why would I ever do that? It's got great voice narration, a voice acting narration, the humor and the joy of the game are there. And it also walks you through and keeps you on task, which means that you don't have to learn a lot of rules. And this is one of the best board game apps, and you just really can't think of ever playing it without. Now, there's 2 other games in the series. There was Wandering Galaxy and I can't ever remember, Wayfarers or something. I forget. There's a dungeon crawler one, and I've not actually played any of them. And because I've only, whenever I get back to this game, I'm like, well, but I could play Forgotten Waters, and I know I have both of them sitting on my shelf upstairs. But Forgotten Waters just did it so well. So another one that does quite well, and this is similar to Chronicles of Crime, is Destinies. Now, Destinies is interesting from an app world because, first of all, it runs the game really well, right? It will set up. It's kind of like Mansions of Madness in that it's going to set up the game and it's going to run it for you and it's going to tell you your quests, and then as you sort of get into the end game, it'll track your progress. And that's great and fun and all, but where it really shines is it allows the game to be played solo. And the solo play of Destinies is completely different from the regular sort of multiplayer version because it's almost like time stories. You're going to go through and you're going to learn things about the world, and then you'll get to an end point, and if you didn't succeed, you'll reset and try again. And the next time through, you're going to have more knowledge of it, and you're going to be able to go more efficiently through until eventually you finally figure out the puzzle and get there. The game is great because it keeps track of everything for you. It's just a really good way to make use of an app. It's not as... Chronicles of Crime is great, but it feels a little gimmicky. In this game, it feels less gimmicky. There's also the New Orleans one, The Dark Quarter, that came out and does kind of the same thing. And it's also good, but I think Destinies does it best of the 3. And then the last one that I'm going to talk about for this time is the new kid on the block, and that is Boss Fighter QR. Now, I plan on talking about Boss Fighter QR next week on a full episode of Wednesday Whimsy, just to talk about it. But in this game, you're fighting bosses, right? You're going to have a character which is made of a class and a race, and you're going to shuffle them together, and you'll tell the app who's who, and then it's really going to run everything else. When you play a card, the card says what it does. You could find a way, I guess, to not use the app here if you wanted to track everything manually. But like it says, do 3 magic damage. Okay, great. You scan the QR code on the back of the card, and the app will deal with it for you. And because each of these bosses has its own kind of quirks and gimmicks and unique surprises, it allows the game to surprise you. and I think that's fun. Now, unlike games like Forgotten Waters or Destinies, I could see myself playing this without the app, right? If I felt like it, I could, take a deck of cards and a rule sheet for each boss, and we could just go to it. It wouldn't be Boss Fighters QR, it would be just Boss Fighters, which is a terrible name for a game. I'll tell you, Boss Fighters QR isn't the best name either. But I don't know, I feel like it would lose some of the magic here. I don't know that the app feels as integral or feels as surprising, but it does help everything to go along at a smooth pace. It keeps you following the rules. Now, there's no undo button, which means if you do something boneheaded, you're kind of stuck. But, that's just sort of part of the game. But it's a really good game that uses apps really well, and that's kind of why this has been on my mind lately. And that's really all I have for you today. Those are some board game app-itizers. And I hope you enjoyed talking about them with me. And I will be back next week. My plan is to talk about Boss Fighters QR, so come back then and watch it. And either way, I wish you safe travels, courage when you need it, and I hope to see you again soon on another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. Bye-bye.